My sister leaned across the polished mahogany dining table and told me the absolute greatest wedding gift I could ever give her was to disappear from this family forever. My mother took a slow sip of her wine and looked away. My father just nodded in silent agreement, so I did exactly what she asked. I packed my things and vanished. But when I canceled every single one of her luxury wedding vendors and sold the multi-million-dollar estate right out from under them, my disappearing act suddenly became their biggest nightmare. Before I get into how I tore down their perfect illusion, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have ever been the scapegoat in your own family and had to teach them a lesson they would never forget. I do not even get to swallow my bite of the crab-stuffed mushroom before my 29-year-old sister Maya drops a heavy cream-colored envelope right onto my lap. We are sitting in the grand dining room of our family Atlanta estate for her wedding tasting. The air in the room smells of expensive truffle oil and roasted garlic from the private chef who just returned to the kitchen. I look down at the thick, textured paper resting on my skirt. The invoice inside is for $45,000, just for catering and imported white orchids. Maya taps her perfectly manicured acrylic nail against the balance due at the bottom of the page. "I need this cleared by tomorrow, Kendra," she says. Her voice carries that sweet, demanding tone she has perfected since childhood. Preston and his family are used to a very certain standard, and we cannot have them flying down here thinking we cut corners on the floral arrangements. I stare at the ridiculous number printed on the page. $45,000 for flowers that will die in 3 days, and food that people will barely remember eating. I push the thick paper back across the polished mahogany table, sliding it right back to her side. I look at her directly. "I already paid the $15,000 venue deposit out of pocket last month, Maya. I told you that was my absolute limit. I am not paying for imported orchids." Maya scoffs loudly. She dramatically throws herself back into her velvet dining chair and rolls her eyes at our mother Denise. Mom tell her she whines, sounding exactly like a spoiled child, rather than a woman about to be married. Denise does not miss a beat. She is busy adjusting her designer silk scarf, making sure the luxury logo is perfectly visible over her collar. She sighs, the kind of heavy put-upon sigh that means I am ruining her day by applying basic financial boundaries. "Kendra, please do not start this right now," my mother says, her tone dripping with disappointment. "Your sister is under an immense amount of stress. You know how important this wedding is for our social standing in the community. You have the money. Just pay the invoice so we can enjoy the rest of this tasting." My father, Calvin, steps into the room from the hallway. He always enters a space like he owns it, his chest puffed out and his posture rigid. His booming voice is designed to command respect from his church congregation and his business partners. I hear him before he even takes a seat. "Do not be stingy, Kendra," he snaps, snatching the invoice off the table and shoving it back toward me. "You have been hoarding cash ever since you started that financial consulting firm of yours. Your sister needs this. Preston has folks flying down from Greenwich, Connecticut. They are old money. We cannot look like we are struggling. We have an image of black excellence to maintain in front of these people." I grip the edge of the table, my knuckles turning slightly lighter. This immediately establishes my role in this house. I am nothing but the family ATM. I am expected to bleed myself dry to maintain the illusion of their massive wealth for Maya and her white trust fund fiancé. They use my hard-earned money to project an image of extreme prosperity to impress Preston and his aristocratic family. It is all a complete facade, and my bank account is the only thing holding their fragile house of cards together. Every luxury vacation they take, every leased luxury SUV sitting in the driveway, every expensive country club membership fee, somehow always finds its way to my desk. I built my financial consulting firm from absolutely nothing. I worked 80-hour weeks, missed holidays, and sacrificed my 20s to build my wealth. Meanwhile, my parents poured every resource, every ounce of love, and every word of encouragement into Maya. She was the beautiful golden child who was always destined to marry well, while I was the workaholic scapegoat whose only purpose was to fund their lavish lifestyle. I look at the three of them sitting around the table. My mother with her fake pearls and obsessive need for validation. My father with his hollow pride and empty bank accounts. My sister with her insatiable greed. I slide the invoice away again, leaving it in the center of the table. I am not paying it, Dad, I say, keeping my voice dangerously calm. My consulting firm revenue is not your personal slush fund. You want to impress Greenwich, then you pay for it. If you cannot afford white orchids, then maybe you should buy local flowers like everyone else. Maya face twists. The beautiful, delicate bride-to-be mask shatters, completely revealing the vicious person underneath. She leans over the table, her voice dripping with pure venom. You always do this, she hisses, her eyes narrowing. You have to ruin every single happy moment I have. You are just so bitter because you are 33 and completely single. You cannot stand the fact that a high-value man actually wants to marry me, so you have to ruin my tasting with your petty jealousy. You are pathetic, Kendra. I open my mouth to reply, but the sharp crunch of tires on the driveway gravel interrupts us. Through the sheer dining room curtains, I can see a silver Audi pulling up to the front steps. Preston. Instantly, the toxic, hostile atmosphere in the room flips into sheer panic. Calvin snatches the $45,000 invoice off the table, crumpling it slightly as he shoves it deep into his blazer pocket. Denise furiously smooths her hair, sits up perfectly straight, and pastes on a sickeningly sweet, welcoming smile. Maya completely drops her vicious sneer, taking a deep breath and transforming instantly back into the soft, blushing bride. Hide the financial papers. Calvin hisses at me under his breath, his eyes darting toward the front door. Put away your laptop right now, Kendra. Do not embarrass us in front of him. Act like you belong in this family for once. Preston struts into the dining room like he owns the very ground we stand on. He drips with unearned arrogance, wearing a tailored suit that I suspect is paid for by maxed-out credit cards, though my parents do not know that yet. He immediately eyes the spread of crab-stuffed mushrooms and artisan bruschetta on the table. He picks one up, takes a small bite, and visibly grimaces. A little heavy on the garlic, do you not think, he says, tossing the half-eaten appetizer back onto the silver platter. I suppose that is what happens when you go with a budget-friendly caterer. My family usually imports their chefs from Charleston for events like this. Maya laughs loudly, clinging to his arm as if he just delivered a brilliant comedy routine. My parents immediately start fawning over him, trying to overcompensate. My father Calvin rushes to the mahogany sideboard to pour Preston a generous splash of the 20-year-old scotch I bought for his birthday last year. Preston's phone rings with an obnoxious custom ringtone. He holds up a finger signaling us to wait and steps out onto the veranda to take the call. The second the glass door slides shut, I turn to my parents and my sister. I look Calvin and Denise dead in the eyes. I am done funding this charade, I say, my voice perfectly steady. The wedding is spiraling completely out of control, and I am not draining my corporate accounts so you can pretend to be old money. Maya snaps. She stands up, her chair scraping violently against the hardwood floor. She leans over the table, her face twisted into a vicious mask. You know what, Kendra? She spits, her voice dripping with pure venom. Keep your pathetic money. We do not need it. In fact, the greatest wedding gift you could ever give me is to disappear from this family forever. The room goes dead silent. I look at my mother, waiting for her to reprimand her youngest daughter for speaking to me that way. Instead, Denise takes a slow, deliberate sip of her Chardonnay and turns her head to look out the window, completely ignoring me. I turn my gaze to my father. Calvin adjusts his blazer and nods, his jaw set tight. Maybe it is for the best, Kendra, he says without a hint of remorse. You always bring the mood down when Maya is trying to celebrate. You just do not know how to be a team player. I do not cry. The years of being the family scapegoat, the dependable workhorse, the ATM machine instantly crystallize into cold, hard resolve. I stand up and smooth out my skirt. I look at the three of them sitting in a house I saved, eating food I bought, drinking liquor I paid for. Consider it done, I say. I turn on my heel and walk out the front doors, never looking back. I drive straight to my luxury downtown penthouse. My family has absolutely no idea this property exists. They still think I live in a cramped midtown apartment because, heaven forbid, the scapegoat daughter actually surpasses the golden child in any visible way. I walk into my living room, dropping my keys on the marble counter, and pour myself a glass of expensive bourbon. I walk over to the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the glittering Atlanta skyline. The city lights stretch out for miles, a testament to building an empire from the ground up. Then I pick up my phone and make a single call to my real estate attorney. He answers on the second ring. I take a sip of the burning liquid and get straight to business. Remember that standing offer from the corporate developer, I ask. The one who wants to bulldoze the neighborhood for a luxury complex. My attorney pauses. Yes, Kendra. The all-cash seven-figure deal. You told me to hold off on it. Not anymore, I tell him. I own the Atlanta estate my family is currently sleeping in. 5 years ago, Calvin made a string of terrible investments trying to impress his country club friends, and the house was entering foreclosure. I bought it through a blind limited liability company called Apex Holdings to keep them from being thrown onto the streets. I have been charging them rent at half the market rate. They have not paid that discounted rent in 4 months because they were too busy buying Preston a Rolex as an engagement gift. My attorney exhales sharply, clearly shocked by the revelation. You want to sell it now, he asks. I want the deal expedited, I command. I want it done immediately. He types something on his keyboard. Kendra, if we expedite an all-cash deal with a developer who intends to demolish the property, they will issue a 14-day notice to vacate. That closing date lands exactly 3 days before your sister is supposed to get married. I smile into the phone, staring at my reflection in the dark glass of the window. Executed, I say, and hang up. I walk over to my home office and open my laptop. If I am to disappear, my financial footprint goes with me. Maya had insisted on putting all the premium wedding vendors on my platinum corporate card, claiming she wanted me to get the reward points. The reality was, she just wanted access to my massive credit limit without taking on the debt herself. I systematically open every single vendor contract. I contact the luxury venue. I email the elite catering company. I message the celebrity photographer and the custom floral designer. Because every single contract is solely in my name, I have total authority to terminate them. I cancel them all. I absorb the cancellation fees without a second thought. It is a small price to pay for my total peace of mind. While I am processing the final cancellation for the string quartet, my phone buzzes on the desk. It is a text message from Maya. Do not even think about coming to the bridal shower tomorrow. Preston has a sister, and she is taking your place as maid of honor. You are officially out of the wedding. I stare at the message. I do not feel angry. I feel completely and utterly liberated. I reply with a simple thumbs-up emoji. Then I open a new tab on my browser and log into the local telecommunications provider. The high-speed internet running the estate is in my name. It is the same internet connection Calvin uses for his supposed business dealings, and the same one Maya uses constantly to update her pretentious bridal blog. I navigate to the account settings and schedule a hard disk connection for 6 o'clock the next morning. Let them try to fix their ruined wedding without a working router. At 3 in the morning, I find myself unable to sleep. The adrenaline is still humming in my veins, pushing me to finish what I started. I grab my keys and drive back to the estate. Using my master key, I slip inside the dark, quiet house. The silence is heavy, broken only by the hum of the central air conditioning. I head straight to my old childhood bedroom, grabbing the last few personal documents I had stored in the closet and a framed photo of my late grandmother. She was the only person in this family who actually loved me without conditions. I walk quietly down the hall and head to the living room. I find the internet router glowing on the console table. I physically yank the power cord and the data cable from the wall, tossing the entire unit into my tote bag. Before leaving, I pull a sleek black folder from my bag and place it dead center on the formal dining table, right where Maya had dropped that catering invoice hours earlier. Inside the folder is a legal 14-day notice to vacate from Apex Holdings, citing 4 months of unpaid rent and a total change of property ownership. As I walk back to my car, the estate automatic sprinkler system turns on, watering the pristine lawn. I look back at the grand house one last time, knowing that when the sun comes up, a massive bomb is going to detonate in their perfect little world. The morning sun streams through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my downtown penthouse, casting a warm, golden glow across the imported hardwood floors. I am sitting at my kitchen island, taking a slow, deliberate sip of my freshly brewed espresso. The city of Atlanta is waking up below me, a sprawling network of ambition and hustle. Up here in my private sanctuary, the air is completely still. I take another sip of espresso and let the silence wash over me. It is the first time in my entire adult life that I do not feel the crushing weight of my family expectations bearing down on my shoulders. I am completely untethered from their toxic demands. Then the vibrating starts. My phone sits on the marble countertop, buzzing with an aggressive, relentless rhythm. I do not reach for it immediately. I simply watch the screen light up over and over again. 10 missed calls from Denise, 20 missed calls from Maya, 15 missed calls from Calvin. The notifications stack up so fast they blur together into a frantic digital panic. My family has finally woken up to the reality I left for them on the dining room table. I pick up the phone and tap the voicemail icon. There are 6 new messages, all from my sister. I press play on the first one and set the phone down. Kendra, what is going on? Maya's voice shrills through the phone speaker, practically vibrating with hysteria. My wedding planner just called me in an absolute panic. She says the venue canceled our reservation. The florist emailed her saying the contract was terminated. The caterer said their deposit was retracted. Fix this right now, Kendra. I am not playing your stupid games. Call your credit card company and tell them to reverse the cancellations immediately. You are ruining my life. The message beeps and transitions to the second voicemail. Her voice is even more frantic now, laced with genuine terror. Kendra, answer your phone. The internet is completely dead. I cannot get online to check my emails. I cannot access my bridal portal. The router is literally missing from the wall. What did you do? You need to come back here and fix this internet right now. Preston is furious. Mom is crying. Answer me. I delete the voicemails one by one. I do not feel a single ounce of guilt. I feel nothing but profound, absolute peace. I finish my espresso and walk into my walk-in closet. Today is not a day for blending in. Today is a day for armor. I select a sharp-tailored crimson blazer and matching trousers. I pull my hair back into a sleek, flawless bun. I apply a bold red lip. When I look in the mirror, I do not see the family scapegoat anymore. I see the founder and chief executive officer of a highly successful financial consulting firm. I see a woman who saved her ungrateful family from homelessness and is now taking back every single ounce of her power. I drive my Porsche to my corporate office building, pulling into my reserved parking spot. The morning starts exactly as it should. I lead a high-stakes financial strategy meeting with a team of top-tier investors. We are in the middle of analyzing quarterly projections when the sleek phone on the conference table lights up. It is an internal call from my front desk. I excuse myself for a moment and pick up the receiver. Kendra, I am so sorry to interrupt your meeting, my receptionist whispers, her voice tight with anxiety. But your father is in the lobby. He is furious. He is pacing back and forth and demanding to see you immediately. I offered him a seat, but he refused. He says he is not leaving until you come out here and fix whatever you did. He is starting to make a scene in front of the other clients. I do not panic. I do not rush. I tell my receptionist to have building security stand by quietly, but not to engage him yet. I apologize to my clients, explaining that a brief administrative matter requires my attention. I step out of the conference room and walk down the glass-walled corridor toward the main reception area. Calvin is pacing the polished marble floor of my firm, his face flushed a deep, angry red. He is wearing his signature tailored suit, the one he wears to church, to project the image of a successful, wealthy patriarch. But right now, he just looks desperate. The moment he sees me emerging from the corridor, he marches toward me, puffing out his chest. He tries to use that booming authoritarian voice, the one he has used to control and intimidate me since I was a child. He wants to publicly embarrass me in my own place of business. You fix those wedding vendors right now, little girl. Calvin snaps, his voice echoing off the glass walls. I do not know what kind of temper tantrum you are throwing, but you are destroying your sister and her future. You are going to pick up that phone, call your credit card company, and reinstate every single one of those contracts. You are not going to humiliate this family in front of Preston and his parents. I stop a few feet away from him, crossing my arms over my chest. I do not shrink back. I do not lower my gaze. I look him dead in the eyes, and I do not raise my voice a single decibel. You told me to disappear, Dad. I say my words crisp and sharp. I am just following your instructions. I am taking my assets with me. You said you did not need my pathetic money, so I took it back. Calvin scoffs a harsh, dismissive sound. He points a finger at my face. You listen to me. I am your father, and you will show some respect. You are going to fix this wedding, or I am banning you from my house permanently. You will never step foot on that estate again. You will be dead to this family. I smile. It is a slow, cold smile that makes Calvin falter for a fraction of a second. I reach into the inside pocket of my crimson blazer. I pull out a folded piece of heavy stock paper. I calmly unfold it and slide it across the smooth surface of the reception desk right in front of him. You do not own that house, Calvin, I say, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You have not owned that house in 5 years. You defaulted on the mortgage because you were too busy making terrible investments trying to impress men at the country club who do not even like you. The bank was going to throw you, Denise and Maya, out onto the street. You do not own the estate. Apex Holdings does. Calvin stares at the document on the desk. It is the official property deed. I tap my finger right below the ownership line. And I am the sole proprietor of Apex Holdings. I continue, refusing to look away from his face. I bought that house out of foreclosure while you were lying to your church congregation about your financial stability. I let you stay there. I charged you half the market rent to keep a roof over your head. And you have not even paid that discounted rent in 4 months because you were too busy buying Preston a luxury watch to maintain your fake image of black excellence. Calvin's face drains of all color. The angry red flush vanishes, completely replaced by a sickly gray paleness. He stares at my name printed clearly on the legal documents. His mouth opens, but no sound comes out. He physically stumbles backward, his hand reaching out to grip the edge of the reception desk for support. Did you check the black folder I left on your dining room table this morning? I ask, stepping closer to him. Because that is a formal 14-day eviction notice. The property has been sold to a corporate developer. The closing date is in exactly 11 days. It is a cash deal, and they plan to demolish the entire lot to build luxury condominiums. You have 2 weeks to pack up your fake life and get out of my property. He looks at me like he is seeing a ghost. He is hyperventilating, his chest heaving as the absolute reality of his situation crashes down on him. There is no money. There is no house. There is no wedding. The entire illusion he has spent his life building has just been vaporized. He scrambles to pull his phone from his pocket, his hands shaking so violently he almost drops it. He needs to call Denise. He needs to figure out how to stop the bleeding. But before he can even unlock his screen, the heavy glass doors of the lobby slide open violently. Preston storms into the reception area, his face twisted with unadulterated fury. Maya must have sent him down here to handle the situation, assuming his presence would intimidate me into submission. He marches straight past my hyperventilating father and steps directly into my personal space, trying to use his height and his Connecticut old money arrogance to force me to back down. He points a finger right at my face, ready to deliver a threat that he thinks will put me back in my place. I open my laptop, and the bright glow of the screen illuminates my face in the dark penthouse. If I am to disappear, my financial footprint goes with me. Maya had spent months begging, pleading, and manipulating me into putting every single premium wedding vendor on my platinum corporate card. She claimed it was so I could rack up the reward points and enjoy the benefits of her lavish spending. The reality was that neither she nor Preston had the credit limit to secure a luxury Atlanta ballroom. I was the silent bankrolling machine funding a fairy tale that did not belong to me. But if they wanted me to vanish, my money was vanishing with me today. I pull up the master spreadsheet Maya had shared with me months ago. First on the list is the venue. It is a sprawling, historic ballroom downtown that costs an absolute fortune just to reserve. I remember the walkthrough of the venue clearly. Preston Mother had sneered at the standard linen packages, forcing Maya to upgrade to imported silk overlays. Maya had immediately texted me the upcharge, demanding I cover it because we could not look cheap in front of her future in-laws. I think about how many hours I billed clients to pay for that silk. Now I draft an email to the event coordinator. I state clearly and professionally that as the sole signatory on the contract, I am exercising my right to cancel the reservation immediately. I authorize them to keep the non-refundable $15,000 deposit. Losing that money stings, but it is a microscopic price to pay for my absolute freedom. I hit send and watch the venue vanish from their future. Next, I move to the Elite Catering Company. These are the same people who provided those crab-stuffed mushrooms earlier tonight. I think about the custom menu Preston demanded. He had insisted on Wagyu beef and a massive champagne tower loudly proclaiming that his fraternity brothers expected nothing less. My father had clapped him on the back and agreed while I quietly signed the deposit slip in the corner of the tasting room. I dial their 24-hour emergency line. I speak directly to the account manager and instruct them to halt all food orders and staff scheduling for the event. I follow up with a formal email terminating the agreement, making sure to explicitly state that all future billing authorizations under my name are permanently revoked. I feel a profound sense of satisfaction knowing Preston will not be eating a single bite of that Wagyu beef on my dime. Then comes the celebrity photographer. This is a man who charges more for a single weekend than what most people earn in an entire year. Preston had specifically requested him bragging to his country club friends about securing the best photographer in the state. I find his contact information and send the cancellation notice. Cancelled. Then the custom floral designer who was supposed to fly in thousands of white orchids to drape across every table and archway. Cancelled. Every single contract is in my name. Every single one is bound to my corporate card. I systematically sever the financial lifelines that are keeping Maya and her fake reality alive. I watch the cancellation confirmation emails roll into my inbox one by one. I am not angry as I do this. I am clinically precise. I am operating with a level of clarity I have never experienced before. While I am processing the final cancellation for the string quartet, my phone buzzes on the marble desk. The harsh vibration breaks the silence of my penthouse. It is a text message from Maya. I unlock the screen and read the words. Do not even think about coming to the bridal shower tomorrow. Preston's sister is taking your place as maid of honor. You are officially out of the wedding and we are going to tell everyone you had a mental breakdown. I stare at the message. She wants a reaction. She wants me to call her crying, begging for forgiveness, groveling to be allowed back into her perfect little world. She expects me to panic about the public humiliation she is threatening. She thinks excluding me from a bridal shower I entirely funded will somehow break my spirit. Preston's sister, Caroline, is a woman who refused to even eat the food at our family Thanksgiving dinner, claiming she was on a strict diet while looking at our culture dishes with thinly veiled disgust. Maya is so desperate for white approval, so eager to assimilate into Preston bankrupt lineage, that she is willing to use Caroline as a weapon against her own flesh and blood. The betrayal should hurt, but it only reinforces my decision. She severely underestimates the woman she is dealing with. I do not type a long paragraph defending myself. I do not call her to argue or demand an apology. I simply tap the thumbs up emoji and hit send. It is the most dismissive, unemotional response possible, and I know it will drive her absolutely insane. She thrives on conflict and drama, and I am giving her absolutely nothing to work with. I am not finished yet. I open a new tab on my web browser and navigate to the portal for the local telecommunications provider. The high-speed fiber optic internet running the entire Atlanta estate is under my name. I set it up years ago when Calvin complained that his standard connection was not fast enough for his important business meetings. It is the exact same network he currently relies on to run his failing schemes from his home office, projecting an image of a busy, successful executive to his church friends. He spends his mornings hosting video calls with potential investors, using the estate grand library as his background to project stability. Without the internet, he will be exposed. It is also the same connection Maya uses 24 hours a day to constantly update her pretentious bridal blog post, fake aesthetic photos of her perfect engagement, and obsessively track her social media likes. Her entire identity currently revolves around her daily bridal vlogs. She posts constant updates about her fittings, her tastings, and her luxury lifestyle, soaking up the validation from strangers online. Cutting the cord is not just an inconvenience. It is a tactical strike on their vanity. I click into the account management settings. I bypass the warning screens and navigate straight to the service termination page. I select a hard disconnection. The system asks me to choose a date and time for the service to end. I set the effective time for exactly 6 o'clock the next morning. I confirm the action without a second thought. A green checkmark appears on the screen confirming the request has been processed. Let them try to fix their ruined wedding without a working router. Let them try to maintain their flawless online image when they cannot even connect to a cellular network through the thick walls of that estate. I close my laptop and finish my glass of bourbon knowing exactly what tomorrow will bring. I check the clock on my nightstand. The glowing red numbers read exactly 3 in the morning. Sleep is a biological necessity, but tonight my body runs entirely on the pure high-octane fuel of finality. I stand up from my desk, grab my keys, and head down to the private parking garage of my building. The drive through the empty streets of Atlanta is smooth and completely silent. I bypass the bustling downtown areas and merge onto the highway heading straight toward the affluent, gated community where my family is currently sleeping in total ignorance. I pull up to the estate, parking my car quietly on the street, rather than pulling onto the gravel driveway. I do not want the crunch of tires to alert anyone or wake the neighborhood dogs. The massive brick house looms in the darkness, looking every bit like the generational wealth my father pretends to possess. The towering white columns, the wrap-around porch, the perfectly pruned hedges, it is all a meticulously crafted stage set. I walk up the front steps and slide my master key into the heavy oak door. It turns with a soft, muted click. I step inside and gently push the door shut, relocking the deadbolt behind me. The house is dead quiet. I can hear the faint hum of the central air conditioning unit, the exact unit I paid $10,000 to replace last summer when my father claimed he was experiencing a cash flow issue. I walk past the grand sweeping staircase, bypassing the lavish master suite on the second floor where Calvin and Denise are resting their heads. I walk past Maya custom renovated bedroom suite, which takes up half the upper level. I head straight down the narrow hallway to the back of the house to my old childhood bedroom. My room is stark and minimal, completely untouched by time or affection. My mother stopped decorating my space when I was 12, pouring all her interior design aspirations and budget into my room instead. I open my closet door and pull down a small fireproof lockbox from the top shelf. Inside are my birth certificate, my social security card, and a few early financial ledgers from when I first started my consulting firm. I transfer them carefully into my leather tote bag. Then I turn to the simple wooden nightstand. Resting there is a silver-framed photograph of my late grandmother. I pick it up, tracing the edge of the cool metal with my thumb. Big Mama was the only person in this family who saw me for who I actually was. When my father was busy praising Maya for winning teen beauty pageants, Big Mama would sit with me at the cramped kitchen table, helping me count my allowance from my first retail job. She told me once that financial independence was the only shield a black woman could truly rely on in a world that would constantly demand her labor. When she passed away, she left me a small life insurance policy. My parents had demanded I hand it over immediately to help pay for Maya out-of-state college tuition. I refused. I took that money, moved out, and used it to register my first limited liability company. That choice made me the family pariah, but it also gave me the foundation to become a millionaire. I slide her photo safely into my bag. She is coming with me to the penthouse. I step out of the bedroom and make my way back down the hall to the main living area. The sprawling space is filled with imported Italian leather furniture and absurdly expensive art pieces my mother bought to impress her upscale church friends. Against the far wall, sitting proudly on a sleek glass console table, is the main internet router. Its little green lights blink steadily in the dark, pumping high-speed data throughout the entire property. This small black box is the lifeblood of their fraudulent existence. It is how my father runs his fake executive video calls, pretending to close massive deals while actually begging creditors for extensions. It is how my sister uploads her constant stream of bridal content to feed her bottomless vanity, projecting the image of a wealthy socialite marrying into Connecticut old money. I walk over to the console table. I do not just switch it off. I wrap my hand around the thick cluster of power cords and Ethernet cables and physically yank them out of the wall with one hard, deliberate pull. The glowing green lights die instantly, plunging the corner of the room into absolute darkness. I wrap the heavy cords tightly around the device and drop the entire router straight into my tote bag. The digital cord is officially cut. They are completely severed from their audience. I turn my attention to the formal dining room. The long mahogany table gleams in the moonlight, filtering through the sheer velvet curtains. I walk over and stand at the exact spot where I sat just hours ago. The exact spot where Maya threw a $45,000 catering invoice into my lap and told me my greatest gift to her would be to disappear forever. The exact spot where my parents sat in silence and validated her cruelty. I reach into my bag one last time and pull out a sleek matte black folder. I place it dead center on the polished wood, aligning it perfectly with the grain of the mahogany. Inside that pristine folder is a legally binding 14-day notice to vacate generated and stamped by the elite real estate attorneys representing Apex Holdings. The document is ruthless and undeniable. It clearly outlines 4 consecutive months of unpaid rent, which constitutes a direct breach of their tenancy agreement. It also provides formal notification of a complete change of property ownership. It states in plain, terrifying legal terms that the occupants must surrender the premises completely or face immediate physical removal by the county sheriff's department. There is no room for negotiation. There is no grace period for family. There is no extension to accommodate a luxury wedding. My work here is done. The transition from the obedient financial crutch to the ruthless landlord is seamless and quiet. I walk back to the front foyer, step out onto the wide porch, and pull the heavy door shut until I hear the latch slide securely into place. I walk down the front brick steps, breathing in the crisp, cool Atlanta night air. The oppressive weight of this house, the suffocating demands, the endless financial bleeding, it all stays behind those locked doors. The burden is no longer mine to carry. As my heels hit the pavement of the street, the estate automatic sprinkler system suddenly kicks on. The rhythmic hissing sound fills the silence of the neighborhood, shooting perfect arcs of water across the manicured lawn, keeping the grass a pristine, vibrant green for the neighbors to admire. I pause with my hand on the door handle of my Porsche and look back at the grand house one last time. It looks so peaceful in the dark, a perfect, flawless picture of suburban elite status and black excellence. The facade is immaculate. I unlock my car and slide into the driver's seat, pushing the ignition button and feeling the powerful engine hum to life. I know exactly what is going to happen when the sun comes up. They are going to wake up in a massive house they do not own, to an internet connection that does not exist, and find a ticking time bomb resting right on their dining room table. The morning sun streams through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my downtown penthouse, casting a warm golden glow across the imported hardwood floors. I am sitting at my kitchen island, taking a slow, deliberate sip of my freshly brewed espresso. The city of Atlanta is waking up below me, a sprawling network of ambition and hustle. Up here in my private sanctuary, the air is completely still. I take another sip of espresso and let the silence wash over me. It is the first time in my entire adult life that I do not feel the crushing weight of my family expectations bearing down on my shoulders. I am completely untethered from their toxic demands. Then the vibrating starts. My phone sits on the marble countertop, buzzing with an aggressive, relentless rhythm. I do not reach for it immediately. I simply watch the screen light up over and over again. 10 missed calls from Denise, 20 missed calls from Maya, 15 missed calls from Calvin. The notifications stack up so fast they blur together into a frantic digital panic. My family has finally woken up to the reality I left for them on the dining room table. I pick up the phone and tap the voicemail icon. There are 6 new messages, all from my sister. I press play on the first one and set the phone down. "Kendra, what is going on?" Maya's voice shrills through the phone speaker, practically vibrating with hysteria. My wedding planner just called me in an absolute panic. She says the venue canceled our reservation. The florist emailed her saying the contract was terminated. The caterer said their deposit was retracted. Fix this right now, Kendra. I am not playing your stupid games. Call your credit card company and tell them to reverse the cancellations immediately. You are ruining my life. The message beeps and transitions to the second voicemail. Her voice is even more frantic now, laced with genuine terror. Kendra, answer your phone. The internet is completely dead. I cannot get online to check my emails. I cannot access my bridal portal. The router is literally missing from the wall. What did you do? You need to come back here and fix this internet right now. Preston is furious. Mom is crying. Answer me. I let the remaining 4 voicemails play out. Each one escalates in hostility and desperation. She screams that I am just jealous of her perfect relationship. She threatens to tell our entire extended family that I had a mental breakdown. She demands that I grovel for her forgiveness before she allows me to be her maid of honor again. It is utterly fascinating to listen to a grown woman who has never paid her own bills demand compliance from the very person funding her entire existence. She still thinks she holds the power. She still thinks I am the obedient scapegoat who will fold the second they apply enough pressure. I delete the voicemails one by one. I do not feel a single ounce of guilt. I feel nothing but profound, absolute peace. I finish my espresso and walk into my walk-in closet. Today is not a day for blending in. Today is a day for armor. I select a sharp-tailored crimson blazer and matching trousers. I pull my hair back into a sleek, flawless bun. I apply a bold red lip. When I look in the mirror, I do not see the family disappointment anymore. I see the founder and chief executive officer of a highly successful financial consulting firm. I see a woman who saved her ungrateful family from homelessness and is now taking back every single ounce of her power. I drive my Porsche to my corporate office building, pulling into my reserved parking spot. The morning starts exactly as it should. I walk through the glass doors of my firm, greeting my employees and settling into my corner office. I have a high-stakes financial strategy meeting scheduled for 10 o'clock with a team of top-tier investors. We are sitting around the massive oak conference table in the middle of analyzing quarterly projections for a major corporate merger. The energy in the room is focused and professional, exactly the kind of environment I thrive in. Then the sleek phone on the conference table lights up. It is an internal call from my front desk. I try to ignore it, but the light keeps flashing with an urgent persistence. I excuse myself for a moment and pick up the receiver. Kendra, I am so sorry to interrupt your meeting. My receptionist whispers, her voice tight with anxiety. But your father is in the lobby. He is furious. He is pacing back and forth and demanding to see you immediately. I offered him a seat, but he refused. He says he is not leaving until you come out here and fix whatever you did. He is starting to make a scene in front of the other clients. My grip on the phone tightens just for a fraction of a second. Calvin has never set foot in my corporate office. He has always dismissed my business as a little hobby, refusing to acknowledge the massive wealth I have accumulated, because doing so would mean admitting I am more successful than his golden child Maya. For him to physically drive down here and show his face in my domain means the panic has fully set in. The 14-day eviction notice must have finally registered in his brain. I do not panic. I do not rush. I tell my receptionist to have building security stand by quietly, but not to engage him yet. I hang up the phone and turn back to my investors. I apologize to my clients, explaining that a brief administrative matter requires my immediate attention. I ask my lead analyst to take over the presentation while I step out. I walk out of the conference room and head down the long glass-walled corridor toward the main reception area. With every step I take, I shed the last remaining fragments of the frightened daughter who used to cower when Calvin raised his voice. I remember being 19 years old, standing in our old kitchen, watching him hand Maya a blank check for her sorority dues, while telling me I needed to take out more student loans if I wanted to finish my degree. I remember him telling me that my job was to support my sister because she was the one destined to elevate the family name. Those days are over. The host has officially cut the parasites off. I adjust my crimson blazer, feeling the heavy weight of the fabric settle perfectly on my shoulders. I take a deep breath, pushing the double doors open and stepping out into the bright sunlit lobby to face the man who told me to disappear. I push through the heavy glass doors of my executive suite and step into the sunlit reception area of my firm. The lobby is a sprawling expanse of white marble and brushed steel. It is a space designed to project absolute power and competence. My power. But my father is currently treating it like his own personal stage. Calvin is pacing the length of the waiting area. His face is a deep mottled red. His tailored suit, the one he wears to church, functions to command respect, looks slightly rumpled. The moment his eyes lock onto mine, he stops pacing. He squares his shoulders and puffs out his chest, inflating himself with the patriarchal authority he has used to silence me for 3 decades. He does not care that my employees are watching. He does not care that 2 high-net-worth clients are sitting on the leather sofas flipping through financial magazines. He marches straight toward me and uses that booming authoritarian voice designed to echo across a crowded room. "You fix those wedding vendors right now, little girl." His tone is dripping with absolute contempt. "You get on your phone and you reverse every single cancellation. You are destroying your sister life over a petty argument, and I will not stand for it." I stop 3 feet away from him. I do not flinch. I do not lower my eyes. I raise my hand slightly, signaling the building security guard stationed near the elevators to hold his position, but remain alert. I look calmly at my father. I do not raise my voice a single decibel. "You told me to disappear, Dad. I am just taking my assets with me." Calvin scoffs, a harsh, ugly sound that bounces off the marble walls. He points a thick, heavy finger directly at my face. "You listen to me. I am your father. You do not get to throw a temper tantrum and sabotage this family. Do you have any idea how hard Maya is crying right now? Preston family is demanding answers from us. You are going to call that caterer and that venue, and you are going to pay whatever reinstatement fee they demand. If you do not fix this immediately, I am banning you from my house permanently. You will never step foot on my property again. You will be dead to this family." It is the ultimate threat. The weapon he has held over my head since I was a teenager, paying for my own college textbooks while he handed Maya blank checks. Conform or be cast out. Submit or lose your family. I look at him and feel absolutely nothing but pity. I walk over to the polished reception desk. My assistant slides a sleek manila envelope into my hand. I pull out a crisp, heavy stock document and slide it across the smooth surface of the counter right in front of him. "You do not own that house, Calvin." I say the words with surgical precision. My voice drops to a low, steady pitch that forces him to lean in to hear me. "You have not owned that property in 5 years. You do not have the power to ban me from a single square inch of that estate." He stares at the paper on the desk. His brow furrows in confusion. What kind of nonsense is this? "Read the top line," I tell him. "You do not own it. Apex Holdings does. And I am the sole proprietor and chief executive officer of Apex Holdings." The color begins to drain from his face as his eyes scan the legal document. I watch his brain struggle to process the information. "I bought that house completely out of foreclosure 5 years ago." I continue stripping away every lie he has told himself. "You made a string of terrible investments trying to keep up with the wealthy men at your country club. You drained your savings. The bank was going to throw you, Denise and Maya, out onto the street. You were 30 days away from utter public humiliation. I stepped in and bought it through a blind corporate entity to keep a roof over your head." Calvin's mouth opens but no sound comes out. He looks from the deed to my face and back again. The aggressive, booming patriarch is suddenly gone. "I have been charging you rent at exactly half the market rate," I say, keeping my tone clinical and detached. "And you have not even paid that discounted rent in 4 consecutive months because you were too busy taking out fresh loans to buy Preston a luxury engagement watch. You thought you were pulling a fast one on some faceless corporate landlord. You were stealing from me to fund the golden child. You lied to us," he stammers, his voice cracking. "You deceived your own parents. We thought we had a grace period with the management company. I protected you," I correct him. "I gave you a home and in return you treated me like a disposable bank account. You let Maya disrespect me in a house I pay for. You sat at a dining table I bought and told me I was a bitter mood killer who needed to disappear. You sat there and validated her cruelty because you thought my money would always flow regardless of how much abuse you poured on my head. He shakes his head wildly, refusing to accept the total collapse of his reality. This is illegal. I am going to call my lawyers. I will have this reversed. We have tenant rights. We have been living there for decades. You cannot just kick your own flesh and blood out onto the street. I lean in closer, resting my hands flat on the reception desk. Did you happen to check the black folder I left on your formal dining table this morning? I ask, watching his pupils dilate with pure panic. Because that is a legal 14-day eviction notice. The property has already been sold to a corporate developer. The closing date is exactly 11 days from now. It is a cash deal, and the buyers plan to demolish the entire lot to build luxury condominiums. You have 2 weeks to pack up your fake life and get off my property. Calvin stumbles backward. His heel catches on the edge of the marble tile. He physically clutches his chest, his hand gripping the lapel of his tailored suit as the reality hits him like a freight train. There is no house. There is no wedding. The entire illusion he has spent decades building has just been vaporized. The image of black excellence he parades around his congregation is nothing but dust. He struggles to pull his phone from his pocket, his hands shaking so violently he almost drops the device onto the floor. He needs to call Denise. He needs to figure out how to stop the bleeding before Preston and his wealthy Connecticut family realize they are marrying into complete financial ruin. He is gasping for air, his authoritarian facade completely shattered, leaving only a terrified man who has finally run out of other people money to spend. Before Calvin can even manage to draw a full breath to process his impending eviction, the heavy glass doors of my lobby slide open with a sharp mechanical hiss. Preston storms into the reception area. Maya must have sent him down here to handle the situation, assuming his presence would intimidate me into submission. He marches straight past my hyperventilating father and steps directly into my personal space. He is wearing a pastel-tailored suit that I now suspect he put on a credit card. He has no intention of paying off. He puffs out his chest, trying to use his height and his Connecticut old money arrogance to force me to back down. He points a finger right at my face, ready to deliver a threat that he thinks will put me back in my place. Listen to me very carefully, Kendra. He sneers, his voice carrying a practiced upper-class drawl. You are dealing with the wrong family. My parents' lawyers are going to bury your little consulting firm so deep you will never see daylight again. You are in breach of contract for canceling those vendors. We are going to sue you for emotional distress and financial damages. You are going to reinstate every single wedding contract by noon, or I will make sure your professional reputation in this city is completely destroyed. I look at his pointing finger. I look at his perfectly styled hair and his arrogant sneer. Then I look at my father, who is still leaning heavily against the reception desk, looking like a man who has just been handed a death sentence. I do not cower. I do not apologize. I look Preston dead in the eyes and I laugh. It is not a polite chuckle. It is a genuine, deep laugh that echoes across the marble lobby. Preston drops his hand, his face contorting in confusion and rage. The sheer absurdity of this man standing in the lobby of a firm I built from nothing, threatening me with legal action over party favors I paid for, is simply too much. He is a man who let his future sister-in-law foot the bill for his own wedding cake, and now he wants to threaten my empire. Go ahead, Preston, I say, my voice dripping with absolute amusement. Call your lawyers. Call every single attorney your family allegedly retains in Greenwich. Tell them you want to sue a third party for canceling contracts that only have my name on them. Tell them you want to sue me for emotional distress because I stopped letting you and my sister drain my corporate accounts. I am sure they will take that case right away. His jaw clenches. His face turns an ugly shade of red as he realizes his intimidation tactics are completely useless against a woman who actually knows the law. You are making a massive mistake, he snaps, his voice losing its polished edge. The only mistake I made was letting you leeches attach yourselves to me for this long, I reply smoothly. I turn to my security guard, who has been standing silently by the elevators. Escort them both out of my building. If they refuse to leave, call the police and have them trespassed. I do not wait for Preston to formulate another empty threat. I turn my back on both of them and walk toward the secure glass elevators. I swipe my keycard and step inside the cab. As the glass doors slide shut, I can hear Preston shouting across the lobby, his voice cracking with desperation as he hurls meaningless legal jargon at the reinforced glass. I watch him and my father shrink into tiny, pathetic figures as the elevator carries me back up to the executive floor. I step out of the elevator and walk straight back into my corner office. I close the heavy mahogany door, shutting out the rest of the world. I walk over to my desk and sink into my leather chair. The adrenaline is still humming in my veins, but my mind is razor sharp. Preston's arrogance bothers me. Not because I find him intimidating, but because his entitlement feels entirely unearned. People with actual generational wealth do not brag about their lawyers to strangers in public lobbies. They do not let their fiancé's sister pay for their imported wedding orchids. There is a glaring inconsistency in the story he has sold my parents, and I am going to find exactly what he is hiding. As a high-level financial consulting firm, handling massive corporate mergers, my company utilizes elite investigative software. We run deep-dive background checks and forensic accounting audits on potential business partners every single day. I open my secure laptop and launch our primary investigative database. It bypasses standard public searches and pulls data directly from credit bureaus' legal dockets, property records, and financial filings. I type in Preston's full legal name. I add the Greenwich, Connecticut address he and his parents always boast about. I press enter and watch the loading bar race across the screen. I expect to find trust funds, offshore accounts, or at least a healthy portfolio of mutual funds. I expect to see the pristine financial footprint of a man raised in old money society. The data finishes compiling. The dashboard populates with rows of financial history. I lean forward and stare at the screen. I blink, reading the numbers a second time just to make sure I am not misunderstanding the data. I am not misunderstanding anything. I am looking at a financial graveyard. Preston family does not have generational wealth. They went completely bankrupt a decade ago. I pull up the federal court records attached to his parents' names. There is a Chapter 7 bankruptcy filing from 10 years ago. The sprawling Greenwich estate they constantly talk about was surrendered to the bank to satisfy a massive list of angry creditors. They do not own a mansion. Public utility records show his parents are currently renting a modest duplex under a different last name. I dig deeper into Preston's personal financial profile. The results are even more staggering. He has 0 assets to his name, no property, no investments, no trust fund. What he does have is a mountain of debt. I scroll through page after page of delinquent accounts. He has maxed out 6 different high-interest credit cards. He has defaulted on 2 luxury car loans. He has multiple active judgments from collection agencies attempting to garnish wages he does not even have. His total personal debt exceeds $200,000, and he is actively dodging debt collectors in 3 different states. I sit back in my chair, letting the magnitude of this discovery wash over me. He is not a wealthy heir. He is a complete and total fraud. He is a financial parasite drowning in debt, looking for a host to save him from ruin. And he found the perfect mark in my sister. Maya bragged endlessly about her wealthy family, about the massive Atlanta estate she was going to inherit, about the limitless resources her parents possessed. Preston heard those lies and saw a golden ticket out of his own financial disaster. He is only marrying her because he thinks she is his personal bailout plan. He thinks he is marrying into millions, but he is actually marrying into an eviction notice. A slow smile spreads across my face. Maya and Denise traded away the only daughter who actually had money to impress a white prince who does not even have 2 dimes to rub together. The irony is absolutely breathtaking. They threw me away for a mirage. I reach for my phone. It is time to let Preston know that I hold the detonator to his entire fake reality. I type out a brief text message to Preston. We need to talk about the house. Just you and me. Meet me at the roasting company downtown in 30 minutes. I hit send and set my phone face down on the mahogany desk. I know exactly how a desperate man operates. A man drowning in over $200,000 of high-interest debt does not have the luxury of pride. He needs that real estate equity to save himself from total ruin. Less than 60 seconds later, my screen lights up with his reply. He agrees. The coffee shop is a high-end industrial space filled with the rich scent of dark roasted espresso beans and the low hum of corporate executives closing afternoon deals. I arrive early and secure a secluded booth in the far back corner where the ambient noise provides perfect acoustic cover. I do not order anything, I just wait. Preston walks through the front doors, 10 minutes later, scanning the room with that signature unearned arrogance. He spots me and marches over, adjusting the cuffs of his pastel jacket. He slides into the leather booth across from me, acting as though he is doing me a massive favor just by sharing my breathing air. A waiter approaches, and Preston orders a black coffee, waving his hand dismissively without making eye contact with the staff. He leans forward, resting his elbows on the table, and adopts the persona of a benevolent savior coming to rescue a wayward child. "You have made a terrible mess of things, Kendra," he begins, his voice thick with condescension. "Canceling those vendors was extremely petty. Maya is hysterical and your father is practically having a heart attack. But I am a reasonable man. I know you are acting out because you feel overshadowed." I keep my face completely blank, allowing him to dig his own grave. My parents treat Preston like royalty because his whiteness and his supposed Connecticut old money background validate their desperate need for elite social standing. They have bent over backward to accommodate his every whim, ignoring my actual financial success while worshipping his fabricated wealth. I can smooth things over with Calvin and Denise. He continues, completely oblivious to my silence. I can talk Maya down. I can convince her to let you back into the bridal party and pretend none of this ugly business ever happened. All you have to do is make this right. You need to sign the deed of the Atlanta estate over to Maya as a wedding gift. Do that and you are back in the family fold. I rest my left arm on the table, positioning my wrist naturally. I subtly tap the screen of my smartwatch twice, activating the high-definition voice recorder app. The tiny red recording indicator flashes to life, hidden by the angle of my sleeve. I play the role of the hesitant, remorseful sister flawlessly. I look down at my hands, then back up at him, letting a trace of feigned vulnerability enter my voice. "I just do not understand, Preston," I say, keeping my tone soft and unsure. "You always talk about Greenwich. Your family has immense generational wealth. You brag about your trust funds and your portfolios. Why do you even care about one single house in Atlanta? You could buy Maya 10 estates like this. Why do you need my property so badly?" The question hits the exact nerve I was aiming for. Preston chuckles, a harsh grating sound that lacks any genuine warmth. He leans back against the leather booth, crossing his arms over his chest. His arrogance completely over whatever basic survival instincts he might possess. He looks at me like I am a slow, naive child who simply does not grasp how the world works. "Look, Kendra," he says, his voice dripping with pure, unadulterated entitlement. "Let us be brutally honest here. Your sister is incredibly high maintenance. Your parents are an absolute nightmare. They are constantly trying to prove they belong in rooms they cannot even afford the entry fee for. They are obsessed with status, and I am exactly what they want." He leans in closer, bridging the gap across the table. He has no idea that every single toxic syllable falling from his mouth is being captured in crystal-clear digital audio. "I am only in this for the equity in that estate," he says, lowering his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Your father has garbage credit. Maya spends money like it grows on trees to fuel her ridiculous social media vanity. My family assets are currently tied up in restricted trusts." He lies effortlessly, not knowing I have already seen his bankruptcy records. "Give me the house and I will keep playing the perfect white prince for your status-obsessed mother. I will give them the aesthetic they crave. I will be the trophy son-in-law they want to show off at their church, and I get a solid real estate asset to balance my own portfolio." He sits back, looking incredibly proud of his own perceived brilliance. "Do not make this difficult, Kendra. Sign the house over today, or I will make sure you are permanently exiled from your own family. I will make sure Denise and Calvin never speak to you again." I let the silence hang in the air for exactly 3 seconds. The waiter approaches and drops off his black coffee. I do not argue. I do not yell. I do not expose his massive financial fraud right here in the middle of the coffee shop. That would be far too easy. I reach into my designer tote bag and pull out a crisp $10 bill. I stand up, smoothing the fabric of my crimson trousers. I drop the bill right next to his steaming cup. I look down at his smug, confident face, knowing I hold the absolute destruction of his entire life right on my wrist. Good to know, I say. I turn on my heel and walk out of the coffee shop. I step into the bright city sunlight with the ultimate detonator ticking quietly in my pocket. My phone vibrates in my bag as I walk to my car. The war has officially shifted from the shadows into the blinding light of day. I am going to let them set up the perfect stage before I burn it all down. The weekend arrives, bringing with it a thick, humid Georgia heat and the absolute certainty that my family is preparing for war. Sunday morning in Buckhead is not just about worship. Our prominent African American church is a sprawling megachurch where social currency is traded just as heavily as prayers. It is a place where reputations are built and destroyed before the choir even finishes the opening hymn. I know exactly what I am walking into when I pull my car into the massive parking lot. I know because the silence from my parents over the past 48 hours has been deafening. They have not been packing their belongings. They have been spinning a massive tear-jerking lie to the entire congregation. I walk through the heavy oak double doors of the sanctuary, wearing a tailored emerald green dress and a pair of designer heels that click sharply against the polished floor. The whispers start the very second I step inside. I can feel the heavy, judgmental stares of the ushers and the choir members. Denise and Maya have clearly gone nuclear. They have seeded a narrative throughout the community that is designed to completely character assassinate me. According to the rumors floating through the pews, I have suffered a severe mental breakdown. They have told everyone that my demanding corporate job has finally cracked my fragile single-woman psyche. The story gets even more vicious from there. My mother has apparently been crying to the prayer circle that I am deeply, dangerously jealous of Maya. She claims I am so consumed by envy over my sister landing a wealthy white fiancé that I have lost my mind and canceled her wedding out of pure spite. But the crown jewel of their smear campaign is the real estate narrative. They have convinced the church elders that I am using some predatory legal loophole to illegally force my poor elderly parents out of their lifelong home and onto the street. It is a brilliant strategy. In our culture, nothing mobilizes the community faster than the idea of a successful younger generation abandoning their elders. I take a seat near the back of the sanctuary, refusing to hide. I watch my family sitting in their usual prominent spot in the second row. Denise is wearing a tragic expression, occasionally leaning her head heavily on Calvin's shoulder like a woman carrying the weight of the world. Maya sits beside them, looking like a fragile, wilting flower dabbing at her dry eyes with a tissue. It is an Oscar-worthy performance. They expect me to be shamed into staying home. Showing up holding my head high is my first act of defiance today. The service feels exceptionally long. The pastor preaches a sermon about family unity and forgiveness, and I can literally feel the eyes of the congregation burning into the back of my neck. When the final benediction is given, the congregation filters out into the massive fellowship hall for coffee and pastries. I do not rush to the exit. I walk calmly into the hall, grab a cup of black coffee, and stand near the long refreshment table. I know the ambush is coming, I welcome it. It does not take long. The crowd parts slightly as Auntie Valerie makes a beeline straight for me. Valerie is not a blood relative, but she is the self-appointed matriarch of church business. She is the kind of woman who uses scriptures as weapons and considers gossip a spiritual gift. Today, she is flanked by three of the most prominent church elders. They form a physical barricade around me, effectively cornering me against the table. The chatter in our immediate vicinity drops to a hushed silence as people pretend not to listen. Valerie looks at me with an expression of performative pity, her lips pursed tightly together. Kendra, she starts her voice projecting loudly enough to ensure the surrounding church members can hear every single word. We have been praying for you, child. We have been praying hard, because the devil has truly gotten a hold of your heart. I take a slow sip of my coffee, keeping my face completely neutral. I do not break eye contact with her. Valerie continues, her tone shifting from pity to sharp reprimand. Your mother has been weeping all week. She is inconsolable. How could you try to throw the people who gave you life out onto the street? your own flesh and blood. It is a sin against God and nature to treat your parents this way. We know you are struggling with your sister finding happiness before you, but trying to ruin her wedding out of jealousy is a sickness. You need to repent, Kendra. You need to get down on your knees right now. Beg your parents for forgiveness and pay for that wedding to restore peace in your family. The three elders nod in solemn agreement, crossing their arms. They expect me to crumble. Decades of respectability politics demand that I bow my head, accept the public shaming, and open my checkbook to buy back my good standing in the community. I look past Valerie's heavy perfume and self-righteous glare. Standing right behind the elders are Denise and Maya. They have positioned themselves perfectly for maximum sympathy. Denise is clutching a crumpled tissue to her chest, letting out a soft, dramatic sigh for the audience. Maya steps forward, putting a trembling hand on the arm of one of the elders. She looks at me with wide, sorrowful eyes, playing the ultimate victim. "We just want the old Kendra back," Maya says, her voice echoing across the suddenly quiet fellowship hall. She makes sure her tone is dripping with fake compassion. The one who was not so bitter and lonely. "We just want our sister back before this jealousy completely destroys her." A collective murmur of sympathy ripples through the onlookers. It is the perfect trap. If I yell, I am the crazy, bitter black woman they claim I am. If I run away, I am guilty. But I am not the old Kendra anymore. I do not raise my voice a single decibel. I do not defend my mental health. I do not argue about who is bitter or lonely. I simply smile, a cold, calculated smile that makes Maya drop her trembling hand. I reach into my designer tote bag. My hand bypasses my wallet and my keys, wrapping around exactly what I brought for this specific occasion. I pull out a thick, heavily bound stack of financial ledgers. I lift the heavy stack up so Valerie, the elders, and my entire family can see the weight of it. Then I let it drop directly onto the polished wood of the communion table with a massive, heavy thud. I flip open the heavy leather-bound ledger, right on top of the delicate lace communion tablecloth. The thick pages slap against the polished wood with a sound like a gunshot. Auntie Valerie immediately reaches out, trying to snatch the book away, claiming this is a sacred house of worship and not the place for worldly disputes. But Elder Thomas puts a firm hand out to stop her. He is the head of the church finance committee and a man who respects numbers above all else. His eyes are already scanning the highlighted rows of printed data. I tap my manicured finger on the first bright yellow line. This is the $60,000 I transferred directly to the dealership for Denise and her brand new luxury SUV last December. I state, my voice carrying perfectly through the hushed hall. She told the prayer circle it was a financial blessing from the Lord. It was not a miracle. It was a direct wire transfer from my corporate business account. I flipped the heavy page to another highlighted section, watching the color begin to drain from my mother's face. This is the $40,000 I paid for Calvin and his so-called business trips to Miami and Las Vegas over the last 2 years. I had to fund those trips because his own credit cards were completely maxed out and his bank accounts were overdrawn to the point of closure. My father chokes on a sharp gasp, taking a quick step back as Elder Thomas raises a highly critical eyebrow at him. The surrounding church members start whispering frantically to one another, the narrative of my mental breakdown dissolving instantly in the face of hard documented financial evidence. I turn one more page, pointing to a massive bolded figure at the bottom of the final column. And here is the grand total of $120,000 covering Maya and her entire out-of-state college tuition, her exclusive sorority fees, and her luxury off-campus apartment. I look up from the ledger and lock eyes with Auntie Valerie, whose jaw is currently hanging open so wide it practically touches the floor. The righteous indignation has completely vanished from her features, leaving only sheer, absolute shock. "They are not victims, Valerie," I say, my tone absolute ice. "They are parasites, and the host just cut them off." The silence in the fellowship hall is so absolute you could hear a pin drop on the carpet. Denise covers her face with both hands, but there are no theatrical tears left. The performance has been completely derailed. Calvin is staring hard at the floor, unable to look his fellow church members or the elders in the eye. His pristine reputation as a successful patriarch is burning to ash right in front of him. But Maya does not feel shame. She feels cornered. And a cornered golden child whose fairy tale is slipping away is a dangerous, unstable thing. Maya drops the trembling victim act entirely. Her shoulders square and her face twists into a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. She steps around the communion table, shoving past Auntie Valerie to get right in my face. "You are sick!" Maya screams, her voice echoing harshly off the stained glass windows. "You are a jealous, miserable woman. You have always hated me because I am beautiful, and I am getting married while you are sitting alone in your empty penthouse counting your stupid money." The church gossips gasp collectively at the sudden venom pouring out of the sweet, innocent church girl they have known since Sunday school. Maya does not care who hears her now. She is consumed by a desperate need to tear me down and protect her fragile ego. "You think you are so powerful because you can write a check," she continues, pointing a shaking finger at my chest. "You are just a bitter spinster who will never know what it is like to be chosen by a high-value man like Preston. He comes from real wealth. He has real class. He is exactly what this family needs to elevate our standing. That is something your money could never buy, and no man like him will ever look twice at a cold workaholic like you." The elders step back, clearly appalled by the vicious attack. Maya is breathing heavily, glaring at me like she wants to physically strike me. I do not flinch. I do not step back. I do not argue about who is bitter or who is lonely. I simply smile. It is a slow, terrifying smile that makes my sister falter for the first time. The confidence begins to drain from her eyes, replaced by a sudden creeping dread. She knows me well enough to realize that I never smile like this unless I have already won. I reach into the pocket of my emerald green dress and pull out my phone. I unlock the screen and open my audio files. I tap the share icon and select the airdrop feature. Instantly, a list of nearby devices populates on my screen. I see Maya iPhone. I see Denise iPad in her designer bag. I see Calvin phone and Auntie Valerie device, along with half a dozen other church gossips who are standing just close enough with their Bluetooth settings turned on. I carefully select every single one of them. A chorus of digital notification chimes rings out across the fellowship hall simultaneously. The synchronized sound cuts through the heavy tension like a knife. "Accept the file, Maya." I say, my voice dropping to a low, steady pitch that guarantees everyone is listening. "It is a special message from your high-value man." Maya looks down at her screen. So does Denise. So does Valerie. Driven by sheer curiosity and the irresistible pull of church drama, they all press accept. I hit play on my own device at the exact same moment, ensuring the volume is turned all the way up. The crisp, high-definition audio of Preston's voice fills the fellowship hall, echoing out of 4 different iPhones at the exact same time. The sound is unmistakable. "Look, Maya is high maintenance and your parents are a nightmare." Preston's voice drawls out of the speakers, dripping with arrogant disdain. "I am only in this for the equity in that estate. Give me the house and I will keep playing the perfect white prince for your status-obsessed mother." The audio plays, clearly picking up the faint clinking of coffee cups in the background, proving the authenticity of the recording. The words hang in the air, devastating and absolute. I watch the realization hit my family like a physical blow. Preston does not love Maya. He does not respect Calvin or Denise. He views them all as a ridiculous status-obsessed nightmare, and he is only using them to steal the equity of a house that I already sold out from under them. The entire congregation standing nearby hears Preston openly mock their desperate need for white validation and admit he is nothing but a broke gold digger. Maya stares at her phone, her hands shaking violently. Denise lets out a high-pitched, horrified whimper, burying her face in her hands for real this time. Calvin looks like he might genuinely pass out right there on the church carpet. The illusion of the wealthy, successful future son-in-law is completely obliterated. Maya drops her phone. It hits the hardwood floor with a sharp, loud crack, the screen shattering into dozens of spiderweb pieces. The physical breaking of the glass perfectly mirrors the absolute destruction of her fake reality. The color drains completely from her face, leaving her looking hollow and terrified as the reality of her ruined life finally sinks in. The church elders stare at the family in stunned, disgusted silence. I slide my phone back into my pocket, pick up my empty coffee cup, and walk out of the fellowship hall, leaving them to drown in the wreckage of their own lies. I walked out of that church fellowship hall with the shattered pieces of my sister's phone crunching lightly beneath my designer heels. The cool Atlanta morning air hit my face as I pushed through the heavy wooden doors and stepped into the parking lot. I felt a profound lightness in my chest. The truth was out there circulating through the congregation like wildfire. I assumed that hearing the man she intended to marry openly mock her and admit he was only after my real estate would be the final nail in the coffin. I assumed the humiliation would force them all into hiding, but I severely underestimated the sheer terrifying power of my family's delusion. By Tuesday morning, I am sitting at my desk reviewing corporate acquisition files when my personal cell phone buzzes. It is a text message from a close friend who still sings in the church choir. She gives me the absolute unbelievable rundown of what is currently happening on the ground. Maya has completely rewritten reality. She has spun a massive, desperate lie to anyone who will still listen. According to my sister, Preston was not confessing to being a gold digger. No, she claims. Preston knew I was recording him, and he was purposefully saying cruel things to intimidate me because I had been harassing them. She is actually telling people that Preston was bravely protecting his bride by putting her bitter, jealous older sister in her place. It is a level of psychological denial that belongs in a medical journal. Maya refuses to cancel the wedding. Her desperation to lock down this white Connecticut prince and secure her status as a high society bride has completely overridden her basic survival instincts. She is pushing forward, dragging my enabling parents right along with her. But delusion cannot pay for catering. The financial freefall hits them hard and fast by Tuesday afternoon. With my platinum corporate card entirely removed from the equation, Maya and Preston are forced to scramble to salvage the event. They need a new venue immediately. Since the historic ballroom is gone, they walk into a mid-tier hotel downtown. It is a massive step down from the imported silk and luxury service she bragged about online, but she is running out of options. They sit across from the event coordinator to book a last-minute banquet room. The coordinator asks for a deposit. Preston puts on his best confident smirk and pulls a sleek metallic credit card from his designer wallet. He tosses it onto the desk, projecting the image of a man to whom money is no object. The coordinator swipes the card. It declines. Preston laughs nervously, blaming a bank security hold. He pulls out a second card. Declined. He pulls out a third, a fourth, and a fifth. Every single piece of plastic in his wallet bounces. The fraud is exposed right there in the brightly lit hotel lobby. Preston has zero available credit. He is maxed out across the board. Maya starts panicking. She snatches her phone and calls Calvin, demanding he wire funds to the hotel immediately so she does not lose the space. But Calvin has absolutely no liquid cash. He has been running his entire life on the fumes of my discounted rent. In a fit of sheer desperation, Maya tries to open an emergency line of credit online using Calvin's social security number right there in the hotel lobby. She types in his information and hits submit. The screen instantly flashes red with a rejection notice. Calvin does not have a low credit score. His credit score has been completely obliterated. The inquiry triggers a massive list of hidden defaults, unpaid utility bills, and delinquent auto loans. The algorithm laughs at their request. The reality of having absolutely zero capital finally hits them like a physical blow. They are standing in a mid-tier hotel lobby, trying to fund a royal wedding with pocket lint and broken promises. They have no money, no venue, no food, and no flowers. And the clock is violently ticking. It is Wednesday morning. We are officially on day 11 of the 14-day eviction notice. The corporate developer has finalized the demolition permits. The heavy machinery is already being staged at a nearby lot. The window to vacate is rapidly closing, and reality is finally breaking through the walls of the Atlanta estate. My phone rings. I look at the screen and see my father name flashing. I let it ring 4 times before I finally press answer. I do not say a word. I just listen to the sound of his breathing on the other end of the line. Kendra, he says. The booming authoritarian patriarch is completely gone. His voice is stripped of all its former arrogance. It is small, shaking, and utterly broken. He sounds like a man standing on the edge of a very high cliff. Kendra, please, he begs. I need you to stop this. You have to call the developer and get us an extension. Just give us 30 more days. We have not packed anything. Denise cannot stop crying, and the moving trucks require deposits we do not have. We literally have nowhere to go. You cannot put your own mother and father out on the street. I lean back in my leather executive chair and look out at the sprawling city. I do not feel a single drop of sympathy. My heart is completely guarded, shielded by years of financial abuse and emotional neglect. Do you remember when I was 18, Dad? I ask, keeping my voice cold and incredibly steady. Do you remember when I was living in that tiny off-campus college apartment, eating instant noodles just to survive? I called you crying because I was short on my rent for the month. I asked you for $300 to keep my landlord from kicking me out. Calvin is dead silent on the phone. I had the money saved up, I continue, but you forced me to drain my savings account that exact same week. You made me buy Maya 2 custom sequined gowns because she made the finals of that regional beauty pageant. You told me her success was an investment for the whole family. And when I begged you for help with my rent, you told me that adulthood is about taking responsibility. You told me to figure it out. I hear him swallow hard. Kendra, that was a long time ago. We are talking about our home. And I am talking about your choices, I reply. You chose to fund a fake lifestyle instead of paying your rent. You chose to support a gold digger instead of your own daughter. So take your own advice, Calvin. Figure it out. He lets out a desperate, choked sob. Please, Kendra. Who are we supposed to call? We have nothing. Call Preston, I say, my tone dripping with absolute ice. He is your high-value future son-in-law. Call his wealthy elite family up in Connecticut. Ask them to wire you the funds to hire the movers. I pause, letting the silence stretch out for 3 agonizing seconds before I deliver the final fatal blow. Oh wait, I add. My corporate background check finished compiling on his family yesterday. You might have trouble reaching them at their sprawling Greenwich estate. It turns out they were evicted from there 10 years ago. They currently live in a rented 2-bedroom duplex and they are dodging their own debt collectors. Calvin lets out a sound that is half gasp, half cry of pure horror. The final pillar of their delusion has just collapsed. Pack your bags, Dad, I say. I terminate the call and place my phone face down on the desk. The countdown is almost over. It is a crisp Thursday morning, exactly 3 days before the wedding that will never happen. I pull my car onto the quiet tree-lined street of the upscale gated community. I do not park in the driveway or anywhere near the front of the property. I park across the street under the heavy shade of a massive oak tree, cutting the engine and rolling down my tinted window just enough to hear the sounds of the neighborhood. The street is usually dead quiet at this early hour, but today the atmosphere is thick with impending destruction. At the far end of the block, I can see the heavy yellow machinery of the corporate developer demolition crew. The massive bulldozers and steel excavators are parked along the curb, their diesel engines idling with a low, steady rumble that shakes the pavement. They are waiting for the official signal from the city that the property has been fully vacated and turned over for immediate leveling. At exactly 8 o'clock in the morning, a white patrol cruiser with county sheriff decals rolls slowly down the pristine street and parks directly in front of the estate. 2 uniformed deputies step out of the vehicle, their hands resting casually on their duty belts, holding thick clipboards loaded with legal paperwork. They walk up the immaculate brick pathway to the front door and press the doorbell. From my vantage point, across the street, I have the absolute perfect front row seat to the total destruction of my family, carefully crafted facade. The heavy oak door swings open, revealing Calvin. He is not wearing his tailored church suit or his expensive leather loafers today. He is wearing faded sweatpants and a wrinkled undershirt, looking completely defeated. I watch closely as the lead deputy hands him the final eviction enforcement order. Calvin's shoulders slump entirely forward, his chin dropping to his chest. The reality of the 14-day notice has officially expired. There are no more extensions to beg for. There are no more lies he can spin to the church congregation or his country club friends to explain away this disaster. Within minutes, the pristine front lawn becomes a chaotic, humiliating spectacle of displaced luxury. Calvin and Denise are running back and forth from the front door to the driveway, frantically shoving armfuls of expensive designer clothes into heavy-duty black plastic trash bags. My mother is sobbing openly, dragging her expensive winter coats across the rough concrete because she does not have enough moving boxes to pack them properly. The professional movers hired by the county to enforce the eviction are systematically carrying out the heavy mahogany dining table, the custom leather sofas, and the antique grandfather clock, placing them all haphazardly onto the grassy curb. The spectacle is impossible to ignore. The affluent neighbors are stepping out of their million-dollar homes wearing their silk robes and holding their morning coffees, openly staring at the disaster unfolding on the manicured lawn. These are the same neighbors Denise has spent years trying to impress with her lavish holiday parties and boastful stories about her wealthy daughters. Now the perfect illusion of black excellence that Calvin and Denise sacrificed my mental and financial well-being to maintain is being completely shredded in front of the entire community. They are being tossed out of their home like common squatters, and everyone on the street is watching them load their dignity into garbage bags. Then the front door bursts wide open, and Maya stumbles out onto the porch. I actually have to lean forward over my steering wheel and squint just to believe what I am seeing. Maya is not wearing moving clothes. She is fully zipped into her $12,000 custom designer wedding gown. It is the only luxury item she managed to keep from the canceled vendors, because the intricate alterations were already completed, and the bridal boutique absolutely refused to issue a refund or take it back. She is wearing the massive beaded silk gown, dragging the heavy, delicate train across the dusty brick steps. She looks completely and utterly unhinged. She is having a full-blown public psychotic break right there in the front yard. Maya marches down the driveway, screaming hysterically at the county movers. She grabs the sleeve of a burly man who is carrying a velvet armchair and demands that he put it back inside the house immediately. She is crying so violently that her expensive makeup is running down her face in dark, muddy streaks, staining the pristine white silk of her bridal bodice. She screams at the top of her lungs that she is getting married in 3 days and that they are ruining her perfect bridal aesthetic. She yells that she is going to call her wealthy future husband and have all of these workers sued for touching her things. The movers ignore her completely, setting the velvet armchair right on the wet grass next to a growing pile of black trash bags. Denise drops a bag of shoes and runs over to Maya, trying to pull her crying daughter away from the workers. But Maya violently shoves our mother away. She refuses to accept that the fairy tale is officially dead. She spins around in her massive white gown, screaming at the wealthy neighbors to stop staring at her, demanding they go back inside their houses. It is a pathetic, terrifying display of a woman whose entire identity was tied to a status she never actually earned. I sit in my car watching the breakdown without a single ounce of pity. I feel incredibly light as the heavy chains of obligation I have carried for my entire adult life simply evaporate into the morning air. And then the final player arrives to complete the tragic scene. A sleek silver Audi turns the corner and speeds down the street. It is Preston. He pulls up to the curb, parking right behind the sheriff patrol cruiser. He steps out of his leased vehicle wearing a crisp pastel polo shirt and designer sunglasses, expecting to walk into the grand estate and play the role of the wealthy savior. But the arrogant smirk completely vanishes from his face the exact second he takes in the catastrophic scene in front of him. Preston stands completely frozen on the asphalt. He looks at the armed sheriff deputies standing guard with the eviction paperwork. He looks at the massive pile of luxury furniture and cheap trash bags littering the curb. He looks at the heavy demolition bulldozers idling at the end of the block, waiting to tear the multi-million-dollar estate down to the dirt. Then he looks at Maya, standing in the middle of the driveway, sobbing hysterically in a dirty $12,000 wedding dress, with ruined makeup covering her face. I watch through my car window as I pinpoint the exact second his brain processes the horrific reality of the situation. The house is legally gone. The massive real estate equity he planned to steal to pay off his mounting debts does not exist. The wealthy, sophisticated in-laws he thought he could leech off of are currently stuffing their belongings into garbage bags under police supervision. The gig is entirely up. The moment Maya spots the silver Audi pulling up behind the sheriff patrol cruiser, she abandons her screaming match with the county movers. She turns her frantic, tear-stained face toward the street and completely lights up with a sudden, desperate surge of hope. In her severely delusional mind, she actually believes her wealthy white knight has arrived to save the day. She thinks Preston is going to step out of his luxury vehicle, pull out an unlimited black card and make the police, the moving trucks, and the demolition crew completely disappear. She genuinely expects him to throw his old money Connecticut weight around and fix the catastrophic collapse of her fairy tale. Maya picks up the heavy layered skirts of her $12,000 custom bridal gown and sprints down the long, sloping driveway. She is completely ignoring the fact that the delicate imported silk train is dragging through the thick layer of Georgia red clay and rough gravel. The pristine white fabric catches on the harsh stones, tearing and staining with every frantic step she takes. She reaches the passenger side of his car, practically throwing her entire body against the vehicle. She slams her hands against the tinted glass, screaming for him to unlock the door. She begs him to get out and help her. She tells him to call his family lawyers and use his massive wealth to force the sheriff deputies off the property. She is sobbing uncontrollably, leaving wet, smudged handprints all over the polished silver paint of his leased car. Preston sits in the driver's seat perfectly still. His hands are gripping the leather steering wheel so tightly his knuckles are completely white. He looks past the hysterical woman beating on his window and takes in the absolute totality of the disaster unfolding in front of him. He looks at the armed sheriff deputies standing guard over a massive pile of repossessed luxury furniture on the grassy curb. He looks at the heavy-duty black trash bags stuffed with designer clothes. He looks at my father, Calvin, sitting defeated and silent on a cheap cardboard moving box. Finally, Preston turns his head and looks directly at Maya. He does not see a beautiful, sophisticated bride anymore. He does not see a woman who is going to elevate his status and provide him with the massive real estate equity he desperately needs to pay off his $200,000 in hidden personal debt. He sees a broke, desperate woman standing in a muddy, torn wedding dress, surrounded by police officers and the undeniable reality of complete financial ruin. He realizes that the wealthy, sophisticated in-laws he thought he could leech off of are currently stuffing their remaining dignity into garbage bags under government supervision. The entire gig is completely up, and there is absolutely no money left to steal. Preston does not reach over to unlock the passenger door. He does not roll down the window to offer a single word of comfort or reassurance to the woman he was supposed to marry in exactly 3 days. His face hardens into a mask of pure, cold self-preservation. He simply presses a button on his door panel. The tinted glass window rolls all the way up with a smooth mechanical hum, completely sealing him inside his climate-controlled bubble and shutting out the sound of her frantic begging. He shifts the car into reverse. Maya is still gripping the chrome door handle as the car suddenly jerks backward. She is forced to let go, stumbling awkwardly over her heavy silk skirts so she is not dragged under the tires. Preston spins the steering wheel, hits the gas pedal hard, and speeds out of the affluent neighborhood without looking back a single time. The reality of the abandonment hits Maya with the force of a physical blow. The absolute finality of his taillights, disappearing around the corner, breaks the last remaining shred of her fragile sanity. She collapses right there on the hard asphalt of the driveway. Her knees hit the ground, tearing through the delicate silk fabric and scraping against the rough pavement. She throws her head back and lets out a shrill, hysterical scream that echoes violently down the entire pristine block. It is a chilling, terrifying sound, but it is not the cry of a heartbroken woman who has just lost the love of her life. It is the raw, furious scream of a spoiled, entitled child who has just realized the credit card has been permanently declined and the performance is officially over. Denise drops a handful of expensive velvet hangers and rushes over to her golden child. Even now, in the middle of a literal eviction, my mother is completely and utterly obsessed with social appearances. She looks around frantically at the wealthy neighbors who have stepped out onto their manicured lawns to watch the spectacle unfold. She grabs Maya by the bare shoulders, trying desperately to haul her up from the dirt. She frantically whispers that people are watching, that the church gossips are going to find out, and that Maya needs to stand up and maintain some semblance of dignity for the sake of the family name. Maya responds by violently shoving our mother backward. The push is so sudden and aggressive that Denise stumbles on the gravel and nearly falls backward onto the grass. Maya screams right in her mother's face, her voice completely devoid of any respect or affection. She blames Denise for not fixing the money. She screams that Denise and Calvin promised her she was rich. She yells that they promised her she was going to be an elite society wife, and that they have completely ruined her entire life. She accuses them of being useless and embarrassing. The entire family unit instantly turns on itself viciously, tearing each other apart right there in the driveway because the only thing that ever actually bound them together was my money. I shift my gaze over to Calvin. The booming, arrogant patriarch of our family is completely unrecognizable. The man who proudly stood in front of his massive church congregation every Sunday and preached about his undeniable success and his brilliant business acumen is now sitting slouched over on a cheap cardboard moving box labeled Master Bedroom. He has his head buried deeply in his hands, staring blankly at the pavement between his feet. He does not even try to intervene between his screaming wife and his unhinged golden child. His booming authoritarian voice has been completely silenced. A sheriff deputy approaches him holding out a metal clipboard and a pen demanding a final signature to confirm the property has been legally vacated and turned over to the new owners. Calvin takes the pen and signs the paperwork with a visibly shaking hand, officially stripping away the last remaining shred of his fabricated black excellence. I watch all of this unfold from the quiet, air-conditioned sanctuary of my car, parked safely across the street, under the shade of the large oak tree. I sit with my hands resting lightly on the smooth leather steering wheel. I breathe in the cool air and I wait for the familiar wave of guilt to wash over me. For my entire adult life, I have been psychologically conditioned to carry the heavy emotional and financial burdens of these people. I was meticulously trained from childhood to believe that their failures were my direct responsibility to fix. I was taught that my value as a successful Black woman was measured entirely by how much labor and capital I could provide to elevate my family name. Whenever they fell short, I was expected to lay myself down like a bridge for them to walk across. I wait for the panic of abandoning them to set in. I wait for the voice in my head to tell me that I have gone too far and that I need to step out of my car and write them a massive check to make the pain go away. But the guilt never comes. I search my heart and I find absolutely zero pity for the people crying on the curb. What I feel instead is a profound, absolute, and beautifully cleansing emptiness. The heavy, suffocating chains of obligation simply evaporate from my shoulders, drifting away into the morning air. They did not love me when I bought this multi-million-dollar estate to save them from total ruin. They did not respect me when I paid for the luxury vehicles, the out-of-state college tuition, the exorbitant business trips, and the designer clothes. They only loved what they could extract from my own veins to feed their endless delusions of grandeur. They made their ultimate choice when they looked me dead in the eye, sat at a dining table I paid for, and told me my greatest gift to them would be to disappear forever. I am finally giving them exactly what they asked for. I reach forward and shift my car into drive. I do not honk my horn to get their attention. I do not roll down my tinted window to deliver a final parting insult or gloat over their destruction. They are not worth another second of my time or another single syllable of my breath. I take my foot off the brake pedal and let the car glide smoothly forward, pulling away from the curb. As I drive down the pristine, tree-lined street, I glance up into my rearview mirror one last time. I see the massive yellow demolition bulldozers roaring to life. Thick plumes of black diesel smoke rise into the clear blue morning air as the heavy steel tracks begin to roll slowly up the driveway, moving with unstoppable force toward the grand white columns of the estate. The walls are about to come completely down. I keep my eyes on the road ahead, pressing down on the accelerator, and I leave them completely in the past. A full 30 days have passed since the bulldozers rolled up that pristine driveway and tore the facade of my family's life straight down to the foundation. 30 days of absolute uninterrupted quiet. My phone no longer rings with frantic demands for emergency wire transfers or unauthorized credit card charges. The silence in my penthouse is profound and deeply healing. But the silence from my family does not mean the community is quiet. In fact, the gossip network in Buckhead is running at maximum capacity. Auntie Valerie calls me on a Tuesday afternoon. Since the spectacular implosion in the church fellowship hall, she has completely changed her tune regarding my character. She no longer views me as the bitter, jealous sister. She now respects me as a woman who holds the receipts. Because Valerie is the reigning queen of the church prayer circle, her information is always meticulously accurate and highly detailed. She calls me specifically to spill the grim reality of their new lives. The mighty have completely fallen. Calvin and Denise are no longer hosting lavish holiday dinners or boasting about their real estate portfolio. Stripped of my financial backing, and severely lacking any actual credit, they were forced to sign a lease on a cramped, noisy two-bedroom apartment situated directly under the flight path of the Atlanta International Airport. Auntie Valerie describes with barely concealed glee how the deafening roar of commercial jet engines rattles their cheap single-pane windows every 15 minutes day and night. Their carefully curated reputation at the church is completely destroyed. The congregation openly whispers about them in the pews, pointing and staring, until the humiliation became so overwhelming that Calvin and Denise stopped attending Sunday service altogether. The prominent patriarch and his designer wife have been reduced to local cautionary tales. But the most spectacular downfall belongs to Maya. Completely abandoned by Preston the second her fake wealth evaporated, she was left holding the bag for thousands of dollars in emergency credit card debt. She tried to salvage her dream wedding by opening high-interest accounts in her own name right before the eviction, and now those bills are coming due. Auntie Valerie reports that she actually saw the former golden child working the cash register at a low-tier discount retail store in the local mall. Maya is no longer spending her days filming pretentious bridal vlogs or trying on custom-imported silk. She is standing on her feet for 8 hours a day, folding cheap polyester sweaters for minimum wage, wearing a plastic name tag, and enduring the harsh fluorescent lighting of retail hell. The fairy tale is dead and buried. I absorb all of this information with a calm, steady heart. I do not revel in their suffering, but I completely acknowledge that it is the direct natural consequence of their own unchecked greed. I thank Auntie Valerie for the update and hang up the phone, shifting my focus back to my own thriving reality. I am sitting behind the custom mahogany desk in my corporate corner office. The floor-to-ceiling windows offer a commanding view of the city skyline, matching the expansive trajectory of my career. I am in the middle of reviewing the final legal contracts for a massive nationwide expansion of my financial consulting firm. Business has never been better. The removal of the massive financial drain my family placed on my accounts has allowed my company to scale at an unprecedented rate. I am completely in my element, focused, driven, and unstoppable. Then the sleek multi-line phone on my desk lights up with an internal call from the front reception desk. I press the speaker button. Kendra, my head receptionist, says, her voice carrying a tone of careful hesitation. I am so sorry to interrupt your workflow, but your parents are down here in the main lobby. They are asking to see you. They do not have an appointment, and I was about to call security to have them escorted out, but they are begging for just 5 minutes of your time. They said it is an absolute emergency. I lean back in my ergonomic leather chair and look at the blinking light on the console. A month ago, the mere thought of Calvin showing up at my office sent a spike of adrenaline through my veins. Today I feel absolutely nothing. There is no anxiety. There is no fear of a public scene. They have no power left to wield against me. I consider having security throw them out onto the pavement, but a quiet, distinct part of me wants to look them in the eye one last time. I want to see the final result of their choices. Send them up to my suite, I say calmly, and have security stand by the elevators just in case. A few minutes later, the heavy glass doors to my executive suite swing open. Calvin and Denise walk into my office, and the visual transformation is genuinely shocking. They look entirely exhausted, completely stripped of the arrogant armor they wore every single day of my life. Denise is not wearing a luxury silk scarf or her signature pearl necklace. She is wearing a faded plain cardigan, and her hair lacks its usual immaculate salon blowout. She looks her age, tired and thoroughly defeated. Calvin is wearing an off-the-rack suit that does not fit his shoulders correctly. The booming, confident posture is gone. He walks with his shoulders hunched forward, clutching a cheap leather briefcase like a shield. They look incredibly small, dwarfed by the sleek modern architecture of my corporate success. They stand awkwardly in front of my desk, unsure of what to do. I do not stand up to greet them. I do not offer them a beverage. I simply gesture to the two guest chairs positioned across from my desk. They sit down slowly as if the furniture might break under them. For a long moment, the room is completely silent. Denise is staring at her hands, which are tightly clasped in her lap. Calvin is staring at the polished wood of my desk, avoiding my gaze. Kendra Denise finally speaks, and her voice cracks immediately. The tears start flowing down her cheeks, but these are not the fake theatrical tears she deployed in the church fellowship hall to manipulate the elders. These are the desperate, ugly tears of a woman who has lost her entire identity and has nowhere else to turn. We are so sorry. We are so incredibly sorry for everything. I do not hand her a tissue. I simply watch her cry. We lost everything, Kendra. She sobs, her shoulders shaking. The apartment is awful. The noise never stops. We cannot even show our faces in public anymore because everyone knows what happened. We have nothing left. Please, we are begging you. We just want a second chance at being a family. We want to make things right with you. We know we treated you poorly, but you are our daughter. You are my flesh and blood. Please do not leave us like this. She reaches a trembling hand out across the desk, trying to grab mine. I smoothly pull my hands back and rest them on the arms of my chair, completely out of her reach. Calvin clears his throat, a rough scratching sound that fills the heavy air. He swallows hard, visibly fighting the last remaining scraps of his shattered pride. Your mother is right, he says, his voice barely above a whisper. We made catastrophic mistakes. We put our faith in the wrong people, and we took you for granted. We see that now. We see how strong and successful you are. You built an empire, Kendra. You proved me wrong. He pauses, licking his dry lips. He grips the handle of his cheap briefcase, and I instantly know exactly where this speech is heading. The apology is just the mandatory opening act for the real agenda. We need help. Kendra. He continues, his eyes finally meeting mine with raw, naked desperation. We are drowning. Maya barely makes enough to cover her own credit card minimums, and my age makes it impossible to secure the kind of executive positions I need to sustain us. We are not asking for a mansion. We are not asking for luxury. We are just asking if you can help us with a small loan to get back on our feet. Just enough to put a deposit down on a decent, quiet townhouse in a safe neighborhood and maybe cover our living expenses for a few months until I can find steady work. You have so much, Kendra. A small loan would not even dent your accounts, but it would save our lives. I sit perfectly still, taking in the absolute audacity of the request. After decades of emotional abuse, after draining my bank accounts to fund a fake lifestyle for a sister who hated me, after sitting at a dining table and telling me my greatest gift to the family would be my permanent disappearance, they have the nerve to walk into my corporate headquarters and ask for a loan. They do not want a daughter. They do not want a second chance at a family. They just want their ATM back. I look at Denise wiping her nose on her sleeve. I look at Calvin practically holding his breath, waiting for me to write a check that will magically erase the consequences of his actions. I look at them with absolute chilling indifference. The emotional void inside my chest is a fortress they will never breach again. You did not love me when I saved your home. I say, my voice dropping to a low, terrifyingly calm pitch. I bought that estate to keep a roof over your heads, and you treated me like dirt. You did not love me when I funded your lives. You took my money to buy luxury cars and fund lavish vacations while telling me I was a bitter, lonely disappointment. You do not love me now. You only love what I can do for you. Calvin opens his mouth to protest, to spin another desperate lie about family bonds and forgiveness. But I do not give him the chance. I stand up from my ergonomic chair, planting my hands firmly on the desk, leaning over them with absolute authority. You sat in a house I paid for, and you watched Maya tell me to disappear. I say, spelling out the reality of their condemnation. You drank my wine, and you nodded your head, and you agreed with her. You thought I was bluffing. You thought I would just swallow the disrespect and keep paying the bills because you believed I was too desperate for your approval to ever actually walk away. I step out from behind my desk and walk across the plush carpet toward the heavy mahogany door of my office. I wrap my hand around the brass handle and pull the door wide open, revealing the sleek, quiet corridor outside where my security team is already waiting. You gave me my wedding gift by telling me to disappear, I say, looking them dead in the eye, delivering the final fatal blow to our relationship. Now I am giving you yours. I am staying gone. My mother Denise stops at the threshold of my executive suite. She turns her head slightly, looking over her shoulder with bloodshot eyes, hoping to find a single shred of hesitation or mercy on my face. She finds absolutely nothing. The emotional well ran dry the moment they sat at that dining table and validated my sister telling me to disappear. I do not blink. I do not soften my posture. I stand perfectly still behind my custom mahogany desk, projecting the absolute authority of a woman who has finally reclaimed her entire life. My father Calvin does not look back at all. He keeps his head bowed, staring at the plush corporate carpet as he shuffles out into the corridor. The heavy mahogany door swings shut behind them with a definitive, solid click. The sound echoes through my office like a gavel striking a sound block. The verdict is final. The sentence is permanent. I walk over to the sleek multi-line phone on my desk and press the speed dial button for the lobby's security desk. Terrence, the head of my building security team, answers immediately. I keep my voice crisp and completely devoid of emotion. Terrence, I say I need you to permanently revoke all building access for Calvin and Denise. They are no longer permitted past the front reception desk under any circumstances. If they attempt to enter the premises or wait in the parking garage, you are to treat them as hostile trespassers and contact local law enforcement immediately. I do not care what kind of scene they try to make. Remove them. Terrence confirms the directive without a single question. I hang up the receiver and take a deep, cleansing breath. The air in my corner office suddenly feels incredibly light. The toxic fumes of manipulation guilt and endless financial obligation have been completely vented from the room. I sit back down in my ergonomic leather chair, pull up the legal contracts for my firm nationwide expansion, and get back to work. 6 months pass, half a year of absolute uninterrupted peace. The autumn air high above the Atlanta streets is crisp and beautifully clean. I am hosting an intimate dinner party on the sweeping wraparound balcony of my luxury penthouse. The city skyline glitters in the background, a sprawling canvas of glowing skyscrapers and endless possibility. Down there, millions of people are hustling, fighting, and surviving. Up here in my private sanctuary, everything is perfectly still and undeniably mine. I hired a private chef for the evening, and the scent of pan-seared sea bass and roasted garlic fills the cool night air. Soft jazz plays from the hidden surround sound speakers, creating a warm, inviting atmosphere that feels completely authentic. I stand near the reinforced glass railing of the balcony, holding a crystal flute of vintage champagne. I look around at the space I have curated and the people I have chosen to fill it. There are no blood relatives here tonight, but this is the truest family I have ever known. My lead financial analyst is laughing loudly at a joke told by my college roommate. My real estate attorney, the man who helped me execute the ultimate eviction notice, is engaged in a lively debate about commercial property zoning with my mentor from my early consulting days. These are people who genuinely love and support me. They do not look at me and see a disposable bank account. They do not measure my worth by how much trauma I am willing to endure to protect their social status. They celebrate my victories because my success does not threaten their egos. And then there is Julian. I watch him across the balcony as he pours a splash of sparkling water for one of my guests. Julian is a brilliant commercial architect who was brought in to design the structural layout for my firm, new regional headquarters. We met in a sterile boardroom surrounded by blueprints and zoning permits, and the connection was instantaneous. He is a man who matches my ambitions stride for stride. He respects my hustle because he has built his own highly successful firm from the ground up. He does not need my money. He does not need my connections. He does not need me to shrink myself down so he can feel like a powerful man. He is the absolute antithesis of Preston. Julian represents genuine Black excellence grounded in hard work, integrity, and mutual respect, rather than leased luxury cars and fabricated trust funds. He catches me looking at him from across the terrace and flashes a warm, knowing smile that makes my heart skip a beat. I turn my gaze back out to the glittering Atlanta skyline, letting the cool breeze wash over my face. I allow my mind to briefly wander back to the chaotic, toxic holidays of my past. I remember the suffocating tension that used to grip my chest every single time I drove up to that massive brick estate. I remember the sharp, biting comments my mother would make about my appearance the moment I walked through the door. I remember my father constantly demanding updates on my corporate revenue so he could calculate exactly how much he could bleed from me for his next fraudulent business venture. I remember Maya parading around the living room flaunting the designer bags and imported shoes I had unknowingly financed through my parents' stolen rent money. Tonight there is absolutely none of that. There is no tension knotting my shoulders. There is no one pulling me aside into a hallway to quietly beg for an emergency wire transfer to cover a bounced check. There is no one loudly comparing me to a golden child who never actually accomplished a single thing on her own. I am not the family failure. I never was. I was simply the strong, reliable foundation they stood on while they tried to reach a level of society they did not belong in. Once I removed myself from the equation, their entire fabricated empire collapsed into dust. I heard through the local business grapevine that Calvin is currently working as a mid-level shift manager at a logistics warehouse, struggling to take orders from men half his age. I heard Maya is still folding cheap polyester sweaters at the retail store, trying to chip away at the massive debt she accumulated for a wedding that never happened. I do not feel joy at their misery, but I do feel a profound sense of universal balance. The scales of justice have finally been leveled. I am a self-made queen. Every single brick of the empire I am standing on was laid by my own two hands: the luxury penthouse, the thriving consulting firm, the deep investment portfolios. They are all monuments to my resilience. I survived decades of covert emotional abuse and targeted financial exploitation, and I came out on the other side completely whole. I broke the generational curse of silent suffering and forced martyrdom the very second I walked out of that dining room and decided my peace of mind was more valuable than their fake family loyalty. I feel a warm, solid presence step up behind me. Julian wraps a strong, steady arm around my waist, pulling me gently back against his chest. The physical contact is grounding and incredibly safe. He rests his chin lightly near my shoulder, looking out at the same glittering skyline that I am admiring. "You threw a beautiful party, Kendra," he says, his voice a low, comforting rumble right next to my ear. "Your friends are amazing, and the chef absolutely outdid himself tonight. I am incredibly proud of you. You know that, right?" I lean back into his embrace, feeling a deep, genuine smile spread across my face. "I know," I reply softly. "Thank you for helping me celebrate." He hands me a fresh crystal flute of champagne, seamlessly swapping it for the nearly empty glass I was holding. He turns his head slightly, brushing a soft kiss against my temple. The cool night air swirls around us, carrying the faint sound of laughter from the guests on the other side of the balcony. "You have been standing over here staring at the city lights for a while now," Julian says, his tone filled with genuine curiosity and affection. "Your mind is clearly racing. What are you thinking about so intently?" I lift the chilled crystal flute to my lips and take a slow, deliberate sip of the expensive champagne. The taste is incredibly crisp, clean, and undeniably victorious. It tastes like absolute freedom. I lower the glass and look out over the sprawling empire I built with my own blood, sweat, and relentless determination. I think about the scared young woman who used to hand over her hard-earned paychecks just to buy a fraction of her parents' conditional approval. I think about the powerful, fearless woman standing on this balcony right now. I turn my head slightly to look at Julian, my smile widening into an expression of pure, hard-earned peace. Just thinking about how sometimes the best way to find yourself is to disappear from the people who never saw you in the first place. A ultimate lesson from this story is that blood does not guarantee loyalty, and your worth is never defined by those who refuse to see it. For years, the protagonist was conditioned to believe she was the family's scapegoat, expected to bleed herself dry financially and emotionally just to maintain the illusion of a perfect family. However, her journey reveals a powerful truth: true independence is the ultimate shield against covert abuse. By quietly building her own empire and securing her financial freedom, she stripped her toxic relatives of their only weapon: control. We learn that walking away from a hostile environment is not an act of surrender. It is a profound act of self-preservation and empowerment. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to stop setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. You are allowed to build a new life, create your own chosen family, and leave the toxicity behind in the ashes of its own making. Share your experiences in the comments below. If you have ever had to draw a hard line and walk away from toxic relatives to protect your own peace. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more empowering stories about reclaiming your life and building your own empire.